In the past 2 weeks, I have been working basically exclusively on this mod. I have a couple other videos that I've been going through. I'll get to that in a second, actually. But I wanted to do another, I don't know, update, I guess, on the status of this mod and how it's going. Because right now, kind of all I'm doing is going through and trying to balance everything and make sure item placements are okay and everything. And I just wanted to show off what the beginning of a run might look like, because a lot of the changes are concentrated early on, um, but that does make the late game feel completely different, if that makes sense, though a lot of items are definitely moved around in the late game. Anyway, the most obvious, I think, right off the bat, is the fact that there are two completely different starting gifts replacing the... What did I replace? To be honest, I don't remember what I replaced. I don't know. Point is, there are two different starting gifts, and also the Tiny Beings ring is buffed. There is a change to the Old Witch's ring. You can't actually see the change in game, but it does take effect. There's no like text difference. I'm not going to spoil what that is, but there is a difference that the Old Witch's ring causes. I'm going to start off with the Sun Goddess ring because it's my favorite ring, and I used so in the files I was adding rings, and I'll show one off that I added in a little bit once we get there. But I noticed that in the texture files there were actually two completely unused rings already, and I figured it would be fun to use them. Originally they were the Ring of Blind Ghosts, which is the one that I have equipped, and then the Ring of Retribution, I think, and it was the Velka's Covenant ring. And it would basically, and obviously Velka's Covenant got removed or never ended up in the final game, whatever. And it would deal damage as you took damage, which is really cool. But I didn't reinstate that original use. I made them basically Lloyd's Sword and Shield rings. They do have an interaction if you use both of them. I won't reveal where you go to get both of them, though. You can, however, buy either of them without having a starting gift later in the game. I slightly buffed the straight sword help just to make killing the Asylum Demon feasible, if not any more fun than vanilla. And I also, obviously, the Ring of the Goddess of the Sun is a slight buff on top of that. I even added, like, everything in here. Yeah, there is an interaction when you wear both of them. I won't spoil what that is, and I won't spoil how to get them, but they are pretty powerful rings. But at the trade-off of, you know, not having any other ring slots to use. I started as a thief so I could have the master key and the ring. The master key just so I can show off some other stuff easier. And I also wanted the bandit's knife because I did buff bleed slightly. I made several enemies significantly weaker to it, and I didn't remove any bleed like immunities, but it is a lot more viable against a lot more bosses now. I was actually going to add bleed to the broken straight sword, but I don't know. I felt like that was too rare of a drop to be worth grinding for when it's completely worthless against everything that isn't pretty weak to bleed, like the Stray Demon or whatever. And that's kind of the niche that the Bandit's Knife plays anyway, at least early on. I don't know. Yeah, I also gave scaling to the Bare Fist. It's not significant. Like, it's borderline unnoticeable, if I'm being honest, which is fine. I didn't want it to be, like, powerful. I just wanted it to be funny more than anything. Okay. Well, that's fine. I didn't fully heal me anyway, so I didn't get that buff. I can use that on the Asylum Demon. I never claimed to be good at this game, I feel like is an important point to make here. Playing on keyboard is also very strange. Come on, let me... Okay, whatever. What the? I didn't get any distance from that. That was weird. Well, I didn't increase bleed damage or anything. I literally just made a good chunk of enemies, or bosses specifically, weaker to bleed. I didn't give any specific buff to the Demon's Great Hammer. I just wanted it to be more reasonable that you would like actually get it in a run. So I don't know if that would be worth it. So strike damage can be pretty good, especially against certain enemies, and if you're already going to go for a strength build, then it can be pretty solid. Now, I'm not actually going to go through like the normal path you would expect through the first part of the game, just because there are a couple things I want to show off over this way. And because of that, since we'll already be going that way, I want to go to the asylum, back to the asylum, because there are also a couple changes there that I want to point out. They're not changes. There's one change. But the Stradium is one of the few things in the vanilla game that is very obvious. Like, hey, you should probably be using status effects and whatever. And that's the only instance in the entire game where it's actually useful at all. So, you know, I did increase drop rates for basically all upgrade materials, like I mentioned. I went through and buffed every infusion for every weapon individually manually. I probably need to bring down the scaling for fire infusions and probably lightning infusions as well. They are a little bit busted, so I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, especially with some of the other changes I made. I don't know. It's going to be one of those things where if you don't know what you're doing, this is going to be pretty difficult compared to a standard run. But like, if you're paying attention and using things to your advantage and everything, it can easily become much, much easier. Now, obviously, pretty big change. You get a Ghost Blade right there, and in the base game, the Ghost Blade is probably the worst weapon in the game. It's unbuffable. It has no scaling. I mean, it has like E scaling and strength, but it's completely worthless even at max scaling. But here, I give it pretty decent scaling, and it's buffable, obviously, and it's genuinely very usable, especially early on. And that's why I wanted it there, so you could get use out of it before. I mean, it doesn't really fall off. That would be the wrong word, but it stops being so incredibly useful because it has high base damage but lower scaling, right? And because you couldn't buff it, that made it terrible in the late game. But now that you can buff it, you can easily take it into the base game or to the late game, as long as you build for it. So that was kind of my goal with the Ghost Dagger there. Same goes for the Jagged Ghost Blade, but I didn't give a Jagged Ghost Blade static drop. You still have to farm that from the ghosts, which is a lot easier with the Ghost Blade. I just thought it was funny that the Ghost Blade was the worst weapon in the game, full stop. At least in my opinion, in my experience. I could be argued that certain other weapons might be worse. Dragon Bone Fist comes to mind. I'm not even sure why I hated the Dragon Bone Fist that much. Its damage wasn't the worst. I don't know. Point is, the Ghost Blade rather is viable now, and I wanted it to be available just because nobody's ever used it. Since the whole point of this mod is to bring attention to things that nobody ever used, or to make people more likely to use things that have never been used. Now, obviously, I also have the damage buff from the Ring of the Goddess of the Sun. But there is another damage buffing item over here that could be pretty, hopefully pretty interesting. I added 5 rings. I buffed and changed several rings. Off the top of my head, it's at least 10 rings are different now, either in location or usage or in terms of like viability to have on a build. But I did add 5 entire rings, and this is one of them. I'm sure 2 other rings. Oh, I'm dead. 2 other rings, and their names can be sussed out from that one, maybe. I'm going to be showing another one, but it was the Ring of the Goddess of the Moon, the Ring of the Goddess of the Sun, the Orange Tearstone Ring, and 2 others, one of which I won't spoil. Actually, since I'm here, I'm going to go this way. I feel like this makes more sense. I think this will show off changes a little bit better. I I moved around a lot of items. I added a lot of new items. I changed certain drops. So if you have played this game a lot and like know where everything is, I would recommend trying to explore things again, like until you get a build together. And even then, like you're gonna want options for a build. That's why I added so much Titanite, for instance. You can upgrade multiple weapons, so you can upgrade armor even, which just is not really a thing you're encouraged to do in the base game. So generally, if you do decide to play this mod and you know what you're doing, pretend like you don't. And hopefully that will be an enjoyable experience. I'm not going to show off every change I made in this early area, just the ones that I think will show off the changes well. And like obviously the Ghost Blade is this good base game this early on, but it falls off very quickly. It has good base damage, like I said, but I think the Jagged Ghost Blade is better for that base game just because it's so much more common. Immediately, you can see an item over there, which is not vanilla, and I feel like that should if somebody doesn't watch one of my videos before going into this, right, maybe they'll see that and be like, oh, okay, so this mod added a bunch of stuff I should explore again, right? That's the goal with this one being so out in the open. And hopefully, no, okay, I did pretty vastly increase Titanite shard drop chances. I think I doubled it. I think base game the chance is 5% from these hollows. It is now, I don't know if it's 10%. I don't remember what I changed it to. I did increase it quite a bit. I don't think I added anything to this guy's repertoire. Yeah, no. There are, I mean, I feel like a lot of these are going to be more viable though, just because of how I change resistances and stuff. Like the dagger immediately, I think is going to be better for a lot of reasons. One thing, one funny thing I think that I changed is that halberds now actually do good crit damage. Vanilla, obviously, they don't do increased crit damage. Only daggers do that, which I thought is strange because I feel like having an entire halberd pushed through your body, like especially a scythe or whatever, the blunt edge of a weapon being pushed through your body would probably hurt pretty bad. Probably a little bit more than being stabbed with a knife. As much as that would absolutely hurt really bad. So, hopefully, people agree with me that that makes sense to change. So, halberds are my favorite class, but I don't think they're going to be overpowered because of that. It's just a little change to make things make a little bit more sense. I'm going to drop... Okay, well, I forgot I was playing on keyboard and I can't quit out super quickly if I mess that up. There we go. And this ring is the green tier stone ring, which again I feel like should be pretty indicative of what the final new ring is. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm also not going to spoil the exact usages of them. It's pretty obvious. They're early on. I also moved the red and blue tier stone rings to places not that I felt made more sense, but are later game because obviously they're more powerful than the orange and green variants, or maybe not obviously, but they are more powerful than the orange and green variants. So yeah, I did move them later game to, I don't know, the red tier stone ring might be a little bit more hidden than the blue tier stone ring, but they're not like impossible to find, I don't think. Especially if you already know where most items are and maybe, I don't know, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to give any more information than that, but there is, you'll be able to find it if you look. And I don't know, if nobody finds it after so long, I'll probably, oh my goodness, say something, but I don't think I'll need to. Hopefully enough people play this mod where that's not an issue and people can like talk about it or whatever. So yeah, obviously I put an item up here. I showed this off in my last video because I felt like this area needed an item because it's cool that you can be up here. It's a fire short sword, which the hope with that is to encourage using infusions. Just say, hey, look at this fire short sword. That's basically a +6. I should probably be using that when I'm in the Berg where you're expected to not have an upgraded weapon at all. So I'm actually going to equip that. I would argue that fire is probably the most powerful element right now in terms of just like raw damage. Simply because it scales with both intelligence and faith. The scaling is less than lightning, which scales with only faith. But it does scale with both, which allows for, you know, much higher potential damage. I've never slid that far with that. What the heck? I'm kind of shocked I haven't gotten a Titanite drop. That's uncommon. I've played through this part of the game with my mod installed several times. Obviously doing like testing or whatever. And I've gotten at least 2 or 3 Titanite drops by now. Titanite shard drops by now, every single time. But I don't know, maybe something in my files got messed up? I don't know. Just like statistically. I guess it's possible that I haven't gotten a Titanite shard drop yet, but it's unlikely. Obviously this one is another Titanite shard. I showed that off. I think I showed that off in the last video, and I did end up moving that corpse to make it look a little bit more reasonable instead of clipping through the ground. Right now, again, a lot of this is just playing through the game over and over. Just playing through the game, not over and over, but just like going through and making sure scaling is correct with different resistances and whatever, and making sure everything feels good. and also doesn't feel overpowered or underpowered, making sure everything feels viable. And I think so far I've done a pretty good job of that. Magic might be pretty powerful. If I do end up adding a fire damage buff, fire would probably end up being the most powerful. But because magic scales off of intelligence, also there's our Titanite shard finally. Just because magic scales purely off of intelligence and you're getting double magic damage off of magic weapon or crystal magic weapon and a magic or enchanted weapon, like you're getting a lot. You might get more damage off of that depending on how the game handles that, because I know like a magic infused bow with magic arrows or the moonlight arrows or whatever is pretty good, or fire infused with. Are there fire arrows in this game? I don't remember, to be honest. I think it's fire bolts and lightning bolts, and then there are the magic arrows and stuff. Oh god. Yeah, the damage on Taurus Demon is good, but I don't think it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just I didn't have room to get out. Probably was a little bit greedy there. I don't think the damage is like absurdly high, but it's high enough that it's like this feels stronger than you should be. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I did increase all of its resistances and brought down fire resistance. I can't believe I just did that also. I think fire has the highest potential damage, especially when you combine it with like Dark Moonblade or Sunlight Blade. But I don't know. In terms of like a new game playthrough, lightning might be easier to get that crazy damage with, or maybe magic. Magic also opens you up to a lot of sorceries as opposed to, you know, the 6 decent miracles in this game. I did put down a lot more opportunities to get the lightning miracles. So I added 2 copies of Lightning Spear and Great Lightning Spear, and I added a copy of Sunlight Spear, so you're not restricted to one of each per character, as opposed to, you know, per playthrough or whatever. And they're static dropped, and you can pick them up as many times as you want. The Sunlight Spear one wasn't working. I don't know if I ended up fixing that, because I did change values with it, but I'll have to check that later. You know, testing how mods work and whatever. But yeah, so hopefully miracles will feel a little bit more viable, as well as lightning damage in general, because base game lightning damage is fine for a few bosses, or then like low level 1 maybe with certain weapons, and then that's kind of it. Usually fire would be considered a better infusion generally, or whatever, especially for low level playthroughs, especially if you're also doing like pyromancies. Having a fire weapon can be fun to be doing 1 damage type or whatever. But with this, again, because I changed resistances a bunch, I'm hoping that players will generally have multiple damage types and stuff. So, yeah, we'll see. I changed quite a few normal enemies to also have more specific resistances, or more specifically, more specific weaknesses. So a lot of armored enemies have strike weakness now, or have like skeletons have a fire weakness and strike weakness, or the heavy knights have a strike weakness, or whatever. Point is, I changed a lot of resistances, I've changed a lot of drop chances, and I changed a lot of weapon placements and whatnot, so that infusions and multiple damage types will be more viable. The hand axe is probably a little bit overpowered when you're playing as a pyromancer, but it's fine. I've been doing a playthrough with a pyro class, pyromancy and fire hand axe, and also Sunlight Blade, and it's been very fun. Again, maybe a little bit overpowered, and I'll probably tone down scaling a little bit, but generally it's been really fun, and I've been having a really good time playing this. Just because I don't do elemental stuff ever. I just do pure physical build, and that's it. And now that Velka's Rapier and Astora Straight Sword can be buffed and have better scaling, like, they're going to be viable for magic builds. Moonlight Greatsword is now buffable, which is going to make it a lot more viable for magic builds, especially because you'll also be able to buff it with like pine resins if you need it, like against Seath or whatever. Generally, I think just using not new weapons, but weapons you wouldn't use before because they're just not good, right, is going to be a lot more viable with this mod. Also because it just changes how a lot of things feel. Having played this game so many times, I am really enjoying it. Hey, maybe we got some Titanite drops. Oh. Hey, there's one. I wanted to give the boar a guaranteed Titanite drop, and I don't think I ended up succeeding in that because of how the boar's drops work. I think it's like a... I don't know. I changed the chances and oh my god. I added the drop and everything, but I don't think I did it correctly, is the point. So it doesn't drop a Titanite shard yet. Hopefully I'll be able to get that to work. But just having more guaranteed Titanite shards to have, like, you know, chances to upgrade more weapons. Also the fact that you find pre-infused weapons, you can buy Titanite shards. I want to get the chance to buy Titanite chunks before the kiln, so you can get infinite of them without grinding forever on the Dark Wraiths. Dark Wraith's drop chance is also increased. So yeah, just a lot of little things to hopefully make upgrading more weapons feel easier and feel like a thing that you want to do. Make fights easier. That doesn't require a bunch of grinding or whatever. As much as it can absolutely require grinding even now. Like, I spent a very long time grinding souls to buy Twinkling Titanite, because you need 10 Twinkling Titanite to upgrade a single armor piece. I'll probably decrease that. It'll probably be 5 Twinkling Titanite for an armor piece. I also want to add a couple more Twinkling Titanite, like, guaranteed drops, or guaranteed, like, static placements. Just because there aren't that many. I already added 2, I think, but just not enough right now. And right now I'm just going through and killing enemies that have a chance to drop Titanite, so that maybe I can upgrade a weapon I would rather use than this short sword. Or the Ghost Blade or whatever. Also, because infusions and like the Ghost Blade or whatever are buffable now, the golden pine resin that you find in the Berg, it just trivializes the Taurus Demon even more. However, there is one thing that maybe encourages it a little bit more, and we will see that once we get up to the gargoyles. I haven't actually done an playthrough of my mod yet, which I probably should. And that gives me a great opportunity to show off the fact that there is a pre-infused magic weapon down here. I don't think the gargoyles are exactly weak to magic, but you know. And you can infuse magic weapons basically immediately because Griggs is there, you know, and you get them to +5. I added a lot of green Titanite shards and green Titanite shard drops from enemies, obviously. And I talked about that in the last episode, or last video that I did, rather. I don't know why I said episode. This isn't really an episodic thing. I'm also going to go ahead and make sure that I put that on. And why not? Orange Tearstone Ring in case I get hit. The Orange Tearstone Ring gives you a 20% buff as opposed to the 50% buff from the Red Tearstone Ring. And then the Ring of the Goddess of the Sun gives you a 25% buff. It's a little bit stronger than the actual, you know, Lloyd Sword Ring or whatever, but Lloyd Sword Ring is not good. It's fun, but I don't know. I just never found it to be incredibly useful in any of my playthroughs of Dark Souls 3. Oops. Playing on keyboard is very strange. I promise I'm not bad at the video game. There we go. And obviously, from the Ghost Blade being where it is, I did end up moving the Firekeeper Soul a bit. So that should be... What? I didn't even realize I got hit. So it's almost guaranteed that you'll find where I put the Firekeeper Soul. I moved around most... Yeah, all but one of the static Firekeeper Souls. The only one that I left where it was is the one here in the parish. Every other Firekeeper Soul, that would just be a static, like, on-the-ground item, I ended up moving. There are still, like, in terms of progression where you would get them originally, like... Well, actually, I don't know that that's true. So the New Londo one, assuming you get it at this, like, before you would go into New Londo proper, but you get it after... you know, you'd be able to. But I think that's made up for by the fact that there are other Firekeeper Souls that are easier to get, if maybe not as early. I don't know. There is another one that you can get immediately, though I moved the one out of the Duke's Archives and into a different area, a different endgame area specifically. And that one is a bit, I don't know, you can get it immediately. Just like it, but it's harder to get for sure. Significantly. That probably gives away where it's at, to be honest. Oh, magic damage against this guy. This is where the Ghost Blade shines, I think. Oh, yep, okay. I forgot that does multiple hits. Apparently I'm not good at my own mod. Yeah, so obviously having multiple damage types and whatever will be useful. Fire, I think, will just always be a nice backup option because it scales with both intelligence and faith. And then obviously if you're not leveling either of them, you can use chaos. So fire will be viable for pretty much every build, if not your main damage type. I think it's actually doing more damage than the magic, which will change eventually. Actually, I think the scaling on intelligence for magic and enchanted weapons is lower. I need to change that for sure. Definitely need to make scaling on magic, enchanted, divine, and occult weapons higher than scaling on fire weapons for intelligence specifically, because otherwise fire will just always outclass intelligence. That's something I will absolutely work on, and that's why I'm just like playing through the game over and over so I can make sure to get everything scaled properly and make sure everything feels viable to the same degree. Maybe not literally everything in the game. There are still some things that aren't going to be quite as viable as others. There are things that are going to be more overpowered just by virtue of the fact that it's impossible for me as a single person to be able to scale everything on my own. I'm going to make sure I can fast roll. I want to use this weapon. Actually, I want to use the rapier, so I'm going to put the Ghost Blade back here. Oh, hey, look, an item in the Gargoyles arena. That's crazy. Who put that there? I did change the Gargoyles quite a bit. Well, that's not true. I wanted to encourage different things with the Gargoyles, hence why I put the Gold Pine Resin in the arena. But I also, because putting this here, you know, being able to just easily do more damage to them, I did change how the fight itself works a little bit, which will become very obvious very quickly. Just get out of there and heal a little bit. Also the fact that there are so many other opportunities to deal more damage, like with the added rings, like Orange Tearstone Ring being so much easier to use than Red Tearstone Ring, and also the Ring of the Goddess of the Sun. I made the second Gargoyle come in with full health as opposed to half health, just because I felt like that made more sense in terms of balance, even if maybe lore-wise it doesn't quite make as much sense with it missing a tail and whatever. I know I've been kind of rambly this video. Hopefully that's not too terrible to listen to. Hopefully I still make at least a little bit of sense. Now, I was going to show something off in the Asylum return, because there is actually a change that I made there, but this is running a little bit longer than I expected it to. Not that that's a problem, but I think maybe it might be a better idea to leave that for people to discover on their own. Maybe not spoil something like that. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I love you all. I hope you're looking forward to this. I've been having a lot of fun making it. I know this is a very niche mod for a very niche community, or, you know, for a niche part of a niche community, right? Which is fine. Like, I'm making it for people like myself who have played this game tons and tons and tons, and just want a different experience using things that otherwise might not be necessarily viable for a playthrough, right? And I understand the fact that most people probably aren't going to be playing this mod, at least people who are going to be doing stuff like randomizers or whatever, but either way, I've been having a lot of fun, and I hope the same is true of you, that you end up having fun when you play this, because even just playing this for like balancing purposes, oops, keyboard is so strange. I swear I'm good at this game, I'm just bad at keyboard. Even playing this for balancing has been super fun. Anyway, I especially want to thank Validit, Lilith the Hammer Witch, Nick Possum, Ratini, Krista, Howling Nocturne, Ryasune21, Racuna, White Flame, Manarok, and Ryan Rickard. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. I don't know how to end this.